Good evening, welcome. We're going over Chapter 9 of Principles of Marketing. In Chapter 9, I'm going to talk about new product development and product life cycle strategies. Before we do that, as a disclaimer, I'd like to let you know this is for review, education, and information purposes. It's not to take the credit for the intellectual property of the book itself. Intellectual property of the book goes squarely on the shoulders of the publisher, which is Cutler and Armstrong. Okay. Just to make that clear, let's start the lesson. Now, what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna continue as part of part 3, which is designing a customer-driven strategy and mix. Specifically for this chapter, we're going to talk about new product development as it relates to the product life cycle strategies. Okay. Now, keep in mind that in previous chapters, you learned how marketers manage and develop products and brands. In this chapter, we examine 2 additional product topics. That is developing new products and managing products through the life cycles. Highlight that would be great. Thank you. New products are the lifeblood of an organization. However, new product development is risky and many products fail. So the first part of the chapter is to lay out a process for finding and growing successful new products. Once introduced, marketers want their products to enjoy long and happy lives. In the second part of the chapter, you'll see every product passes through several life cycle stages, and each stage poses new challenges requiring different marketing strategies and tactics. Okay, so here's the point here. Try to highlight it and it goes commando on me here. Okay. There we go. Finally, we wrap up our product discussion by looking at 2 additional considerations, which are social responsibility in product decisions and international product and services marketing. Excuse me. Now, this here. For openers, consider Google as one of the world's most innovative companies. Google seems to come up with an unending flow of knock your eye out new technologies and services. It has to do with finding, refining, and using information. There's probably an innovative Google solution for it. At Google, innovation isn't just a process, it's a very spirit of the place. So what we'd like to take from that is what is learning from Google and then emulating or adapting it towards what we do. Not taking their idea, but taking the wisdom and the lessons learned from it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip by the case example of Google. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you read that case example. Just remember that the way that a company stays ahead of its competition is through innovation. Every single product line and product that it or service that it develops and markets and sells. Just keep that in mind. Innovation is the key. Now, let's summarize what we should learn from this chapter. Now, for objective 1, we want to explain how companies find and develop new product ideas. That's the new product development strategy. For objective 2, we want to list and define the steps in the new product development process. and the major considerations in managing the process. That is the new product development process and managing new product development. As for objective 3, we want to describe the stages of the product life cycle and how marketing strategies change during a product's life cycle. Okay? That is the product life cycle strategies. And for objective 4, discuss 2 additional product issues. Okay? That is socially responsible product decisions and international product and services marketing. So, in other words, it's the additional product and service considerations. So these are the 4 objectives that we're going to need to meet for this chapter. Now, moving on, let's get into it and talk about new product development strategy. Now, as point of definition, new product development is the development of original products improvements, product modifications, and new brands through the firm's own product development efforts. So if you think about this, what they're doing is they're coming up with a new product by either modifying something that already exists or completely changing it to improve it. The reason why that matters is because when there's something that has been changed with the product that increases value, it also becomes marketable because it is something as an extra feature and ultimately an extra benefit to the customer. Okay? Now, just to clarify, new products are important both to customers and marketers who serve them. For customers, they bring new solutions and variety to their lives. Okay? So that would be the first thing to consider. For companies, new products are the key source of growth. Even in a down economy, companies must continue to innovate. New products provide new ways to connect with customers as they adapt their buying to changing economic times. Bad times are, quote, when winners and losers get created, says former Xerox CEO Ann Kulke. She says the ability to reinforce great marketing and great brand is extraordinarily important. John Hayes, CEO of American Express, agrees, quote, the world would pass you by if you are not constantly innovating. See, the key words are constantly and innovating. When you can't just come up with a product once, and that's it. You can't live off the laurels. You can't live off the past accomplishments, or the past perceptions. You have to be constantly in the present and moving forward to the future. Yet innovation can be very expensive and very risky. New products face tough odds. According to our estimate, 80% of all new products fail or dramatically underperform. Each year, companies lose an additional $20 billion to $30 billion on failed food products alone. And this is as of 2012, okay, when this book was published. Actually, if I could find a newer version of this book, I would, but unfortunately I didn't, so that's what it is for the time being. So here's the question. Why do so many new products fail? Well, there's several reasons for that. Okay. Although an idea may be good, the company may overestimate the market size. The actual product may be poorly designed, or it might be incorrectly positioned. Launched at the wrong time, priced too high, or poorly advertised. A high-level executive might push a favorite idea despite poor marketing research findings. Sometimes the costs of product development are higher than expected, and sometimes companies fight back harder than expected. However, the reasons behind some new product failures are pretty obvious. Try for the following size. So basically, we want to look at those considerations. Number one, launched at the wrong time. That could be regarding seasonal demand. Number two, price too high. It's also an obvious reason. And then poorly advertised because you need attention to the product. As the saying goes, money follows attention. Right? Now, the last one is sometimes the costs of product development are higher than expected, and sometimes competitions fight back harder than expected as well because you do have competition in your niche. So, and the thing is, even if you for beginning on a very temporary basis don't have little to no competition, that's only temporary until people realize what other people are buying. People catch on, and then suddenly other people are in the same niche as you. But the important thing to remember about innovation in a cautionary tale is that innovation can be very expensive and very risky. Why? It costs a whole bunch of money to produce a new product in terms of it being a new idea and a new technology. Number one, you need R&D. Number two, you need your daily overhead. And number three, you need it to be patent and or copyrighted as well, not including other things, other expenses. So yes, those are major things that are part of the expenses. Now, let's talk about new product development process. You notice I'm skipping some of this stuff because it's just some case examples. Case examples are good. The idea is to get the main point or the most important point is to get the main idea down first, get the overall idea first. Then what we'll do is once we have the skeleton, we'll fill it in with flesh, we'll fill it in with everything else that's living inside of it. Okay. Now, let's talk about the new product development process. Now, companies face a problem. They must develop new products, but the odds weigh heavily against success. To create successful new products, a company must understand its consumer markets and competition and develop products to drive superior value to customers. So we're dealing with a couple considerations. Number one, we need to know the market in terms of what the demand is. Number two, we need to know what our competitors are doing in terms of their strategy, in terms of their offerings. Okay. And then we need to understand what products will offer the most value. And of course, the last one is you need to understand your customers as well. Now, for point of definition, let's talk about idea generation. That is the systematic search for new product ideas. And basically, what you do with that is you say, okay, you go through a series of questions as a brainstorm, and then you come down to your top one all the way to your top three or four, and then you keep narrowing it down. So what it is you say, okay, I'm in this niche. What are people buying in this niche? Or if you can't figure out in your niche, leading to the niche, let's say you want to expand out and leverage out, what you can do is you can say, okay, from this segment, what are people buying in that segment? Understand? Or what is selling, or what is the need? That's one way. Second way is you look at the products you have and you say which ones can be improved. What you do is you actually look at the product or service and look at it from a third party's point of view, not from a competitor's point of view or the originator's point of view, but the customer's point of view, as in that suppose that you're consuming the product or using the service. Then the question becomes, is there anything missing in it? How can it be improved upon? Okay, I'll give you an example for a product. There was a supplement what was it, tub. And you scoop all the, I don't know what it was. It was if it was whey, W. In other words, the number that's spelled WHEY, or supplement, some sort of supplement you have in a tub, as in like you carry it, not as in you take a shower. That's a different tub. And it seemed to be missing that made it not so convenient to get the supplement out of the tub. So somebody said, okay, well, it's not so convenient for getting it, so if you have to dump it out, what if we just get a scooper? I mean, it sounds something obvious and funny like that, but the idea is that you're looking for a way to improve the product. Okay? What you do is you look at the products that are in that niche, in that segment, and you ask yourself, how can the product be improved? Or if it's a service, how can the product be improved? Things can always be improved. It's not perfect. Okay? So that's one way. The second way is, what is a need that isn't being fulfilled? If we have a need and it's not being fulfilled, what is the need? As I'm highlighting this here. What is the need, and how can we fulfill it? Okay? For example, or what is something that's not up to the standard? Let's make it up to the standard. Let's improve it. Okay? Or we could say, okay, what is out of date that needs to go up to date? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it more effective? That's all based upon improving the product or service. Okay? If you see nowadays, people are looking to save time. So basically, if you categorize this, you look at it in a couple of ways. Number one, how can we make the product or service more effective? Number two, how can we save time with the product or service? Okay, so it's basically one of those two. More effective and saves time. Or alternatively, also, how can we make the product or service cheaper and more affordable so we can have mass sales of the product or service? So it's basically it's either the effectiveness, the efficiency, or the price. Or, of course, I guess we could also say availability. Nowadays, with the internet, it's extremely available. So mainly, I would say price, effectiveness, and efficiency. Now, let's talk about internal idea sources. So I gave you basically my own words and basically something that tells you what it is. Let's talk about some other ideas as well. Now, using internal sources, the company can find new ideas through formal R&D. And just in case you're not familiar with the acronym R&D, that stands for Research and Development. It's basically people that says, okay, we want to develop this product. For example, before they started to come up with before they had this idea of a flying car, somebody said, well, let's find a way that we can make a product that solves a problem. For example, we have congestion on the road. How do we solve congestion on the road? What can we make for a product that would solve congestion on the road? Well, one solution was make a tunnel underneath, okay, to divert some traffic. And then, of course, that's become saturated as the popularity grows for that. And they say, okay, how about we have more space? We're not using it. How about a flying car? Okay, we have a problem. We identify the problem first. Congestion on the road. We say, okay, well, how do we solve? First, we identify the problem. We look for the solution to the problem. Then, after we have the solution for the problem, we implement the solution to the problem. So now, once we've established the first two stages, we go to stage three. And from stage three, basically what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we want to make a car that flies. How do we make a car that flies? Okay, so that's what it is. Just using car that flies, for example, but There is literally something, and it's coming out as basically a taxi service. It's called, the acronym is VTOL, and that's Electronic Vertical Takeoff and Landing Vehicle, or the VTOL vehicle. The idea is it holds a couple of people, and it basically takes off like a helicopter, but it's shaped like a car. Okay? So it's not that amazing. It's just that in the shape of it, it seems quite amazing. But it's like kind of like saying it's a helicopter amazing. It's definitely nice. It's definitely convenient. It's definitely useful, but it's not amazing. So anyway, however, in a survey, 750 global CEOs reported that only 14% of the innovation ideas come from traditional R&D. Instead, 41% came from employees and 36% came from customers. Well, here's the funny thing about ideas. If you want to call it funny, use it that term funny. The idea itself has value, and it's something you don't want to give away very easily, because if you have the right idea, it can be marketed and can be worth billions of dollars. Okay, for example, the guy who's making flying cars. I mean, not just one person, but let's say the company or companies that are making a flying car. That has huge potential. Okay, how about the person who had the idea, or the company had the idea for solar panels? Okay. How about the person who had the idea for like a wireless keyboard or a mouse? As basic as that sounds, it makes a lot of money because there's lots of sales and production of it. Okay, so be very careful and guard your ideas. But if it's an idea that's property or intellectual property of the company, then of course, let's work with it and make money for the company. So let's talk about the process here. It's an 8-step process. Number one, we have the idea generation, which I was just talking about. Number two, we have the idea screening. So we say, okay, idea generation is basically brainstorming. Then we screen the idea. It says, okay, is this viable? That's idea screening. Number three, we have concept development and testing. So once we have the idea, it says the idea, here's an idea, right? Then you pass it off to seeing if the idea is viable. Then what you do is you test out the idea. After you've tested it out, you apply it and say, okay, this will actually work. Then what you do is you want to come up with a marketing strategy to sell this, to show the value, and ultimately sell this product. So that's the marketing strategy development. Now through that, we want to see if through our marketing, how we can fully make a business model out of it. That's the business analysis. Once we have a business model for how we're going to sell this, how we're going to make profitable relationships as it relates to that, then we actually make the actual product itself. Okay. Then we do what's called test marketing, and test marketing is basically you do sampling for the marketing itself. So you'll do it in smaller sampling pools. It's just like when you do like a survey, something like a survey, where you'll test it out. You'll test out to see whether or not people will like what you have. Okay, so you have opinion panels, marketing panels. Oftentimes, you pay people for participating in it just to get people's honest opinion about it. So that's your test marketing. There's many different uh, ways you can do test marketing, but that's one of the biggest ways is just basically a survey. Okay. So and finally, after we've tested the market to see, okay, are people interested in this, but they pay the price that we would like to charge for it? If the answer is yes, then you go to commercialization, where you officially market, sell, produce, distribute the item and go through the supply chain process to be able to acquire the items, transport the items, distribute the items, and ultimately sell all the items to create value for the company. That's the commercialization. Now, beyond its internal R&D process, this company can pick the brains of employees from executives to scientists to engineers and manufacturing to salespeople. They all have their angle in terms of if it's viable or not, and what they think would be something they could work with. Many companies that develop successful intrapreneur means inside of the company programs that encourage employees to envision and develop new product ideas. For example, internet networking company Cisco makes this everyday business to come up with great ideas. It set up an internal wiki called Zone or iZone, through which Cisco employee can propose an idea for a new product or comment on or comment on or modify someone else's proposed idea. So this is a way that you can test out the idea. Since the inception, iZone has generated hundreds of ideas, leading to formation of 4 new Cisco business units. So that's the commercialization of the end. Alright. Remember, the first stage is basically the brainstorming, where we need to just come up with ideas. You can come up with ideas in various ways through various channels, but basically that's what it is. I mean, you can do it in terms of just being creative, you can do it just like imagining things, or you can do it from analyzing and assessing the strengths and weaknesses of different products and how it can be improved, and then based upon that, what's something they can do. So there's different ways of brainstorming depending on what your criteria is. Now we also have external idea sources. Companies can be good. Companies can, well, they can also be good, but companies can also obtain good new product ideas from any number of external sources. This means from outside the company, thus it's external. This is called distributors and suppliers, like I'm just saying. Let's differentiate the difference between the two. Now, suppliers is the originator of the person who will give you the item that you need, as in you buy the item directly from that person, from that company, person, or whoever. Distributors are the person who takes the product in wholesale and sells it to all the different retail stores. Either that takes care of both the sales and the logistics of unloading all the supply that the wholesaler has. So in a company, you can have your own internal distribution where you distribute to different countries, distribute to different regions of a country, those types of things. And and it's often organized by its logistics chain as well. Now, distributors are close to the market and can pass along information about consumer problems and new product possibilities. So that's another thing where the distributor can add value to the process. Suppliers can tell a company about new concepts, techniques, and materials that can be used to develop new products. Um, yeah, sorry. Have new product possibilities, that is. Competitors are another source. That's if you consider the SWOT analysis, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Competitors are the last part, which is T and threats. Those are the people who are doing exactly the same thing that you are in your niche. It's just like hardware and software are not competitors. These are not competing segments. So you have different niches even within software or within hardware. And the way that you know that they're not competitors, or they are competitors, you have to ask yourself one question: Do they offer an identical product or service? And the second thing is, are they trying to solve the same problem? So the main question is, are they trying to solve the same problem? How they're trying to solve the same problem, or not solve the same problem, has to do with the product delivery or the service delivery. Now, companies watch competitors' ads to get clues about the new products. Why? You want to see what solutions and values are they proposing to their customers for what they call the value proposition. It's basically saying, okay, this is the value that the product has, and this is the problem that it will solve. Okay? Sometimes they actually create problems for consumers, meaning like, for example, let's say you had a working product that's working just fine, meeting your needs, and the competitor says, well, you don't want that one because I have a better one. So basically, sometimes they do what's called creating an artificial need. So it's very ethically questionable. It's justified by means of competition, meaning like, well, because I also want to make it so I want to show mine is better, therefore they need the better one, not the one they have already. Well, that's a matter of perspective. I will say that I guess I will just need to speak for myself that when I say this that everybody's needs are different, but um, it's not necessary to always have the latest and greatest. It's necessary to have a reliable solution that fits your needs and that solves your problems day in and day out. And until this that no longer solves your problems and fits your needs day in and day out, it is actually more cost effective to stay with what you have. Now, I'll give you an example with technology. What technology does, so there is actually a rule that I learned in college. It's called the three patch rule. What it is especially enterprise wide, which is very large, in like a corporate size, like thousands and thousands of employees type thing. That's called enterprise. They don't actually upgrade their operating system until the third patches come out. So, for example, when you have a new release, that's a major release. That's patch 1, because that's the first one that's come out. Okay? And then when there's a modification, as in another one that's patch 2. Technically the first major release is, um, excuse me, the first major. So in software releases, you have a hierarchy. So you have a major release, for example, Windows, whatever, or operating system X, whatever the number is. Okay, operating system number, for example, 10. Okay, that's what's called a major release. And then you have minor releases. They're subclassified as a major minor and a minor major, and then a minor minor. Basically, what happens is kind of like this. You have your major release, which is 10, and then you have your patches, which is 10.1. That's a major minor. And then you have a minor major, which is 10.11. And then you have your minor minor, which is 10.111. The idea is technically the first patch, which is by definition an improvement from the previous process, is basically when the new major release comes out. Technically, that's considered a first patch, even though it's not an update. So terms like updates and patches are used interchangeably, but basically yes. So your first major release is a patch. Okay. So the idea of a patch is that it fixes an existing problem or a hole in a particular product. Now, for service meaning like a fix a particular product or service. Then what you have is you have your second patch, so it would be 10.1. That technically would be patch 2. And then you can do like 10.2. third patch. Now, depending on the significance of the patch itself, whether it's a major patch, which is a major minor, whether it's a whether it's how many major minors, which is the point after the number. So for example, 10. How many points after? So it can be point 3. That's 3 patches. So technically 10.2 because the way numbering is set up in Microsoft and operating system is the first digit starts with a 0, not a 1. So technically and also operationally, the first patch technically is the first release, so that would be 1. And then you have 2 more, so you could have 10.2 be the third patch, or you could have 10.111, 10.11. Depending on how significant the major minors are, the minor majors are, then that could count as a patch, depending on the significance of the patch itself. But the point is, you don't upgrade until you've got 3 patches to prove that it's stable and it's functional according to what the needs are. Okay, so that's one thing. Because after all, if you have something that's already working, why would you upgrade? Or as they call it, upgrading, it's basically changing products or services. They call it an upgrade. I just call it a change. So anyway, you have to consider that it's finished all of any of its troubleshooting process. In other words, made sure that there's no other problems with the product or service, which is a product recall, or for service you have improvements. Basically, your improvements it's usually 2 to 3 from the major product itself. So technically, as I said, the first patch is the first major difference. So let's say from 9 to a 10, that's a patch technically. If it's something that's an improvement, which is technically the definition of a patch, it's to fix or improve upon product or service that's already existing. Well, anyway, sort of a longer explanation of the operating system or computer example, the IT example as it relates to our topic. Now, they buy competing new products and take them apart and see how they work. They analyze their sales and decide whether they should bring out a new product of their own. What you do is you buy your competitor's product and you use it. You say, okay, and then you assess what the strengths and weaknesses are, right? In the assessment, you analyze by taking in all the information, coming to a conclusion. With the assessment, you have a value judgment based on that, or a so-called objective measurement of it itself, of the product or service itself. Now, basically, after you've done that, basically what you do is you do a side-by-side comparison, which one is better. Or if they have different strengths and weaknesses, ask yourself which one would, if I was the customer, which one would I buy? And if it's not clear in the beginning, what you do is either you do more testing, or you say, okay, what can I take? What would be different about what my competition has than what I have? And let's take what they have and integrate it into what I have. That's what it is. But the main thing is you need to understand what their selling points, what does your competition have? So that way you can make sure that you're providing something similar in terms of value or in terms of features. Now they buy competing new products, take them apart, as I said, see how they work, analyze their sales, decide whether or not they should bring a new product of their own. So this can be for products or services, as I said. Okay. Now again, the important thing is to see it from a consumer's point of view, not from your point of view as the person working in the company. Because you're looking for the product or service experience is what you're looking at. Now, other ideas surface that include trades, magazines, shows, seminars, government agencies, advertising agencies, marketing research firms, university and commercial laboratories, and inventors. Perhaps the most important source of new product ideas are customers themselves, which is basically the survey which I mentioned in the beginning. The reason why this matters is because customers can directly tell you, give you feedback on the product or service. That will tell you how to make it better. Um, Basically, the company can analyze customer questions and complaints to find new products that better solve consumer problems. Or it can invite customers to share suggestions and ideas. For example, Starbucks sponsors My Starbucks Idea. It's a website that invites customers to share, discuss, and vote on products and service ideas. What you want the interaction with the customer to make sure that not only are you building trust with the customer, you're also building value with the customer and then eventually loyalty with the customer because you said, okay, I'm making this for to meet the needs of what you're looking for. We want to make it better to better satisfy the customer. You know better than anyone else what you want from Starbucks, says the slate. So tell us, what's your Starbucks idea? Revolutionary or simple? We want to hear it. So this is something that's very important is you have that dialogue, but it's a very cheap way of getting product research, marketing research, is because the customer will directly tell you what they're looking for and what's good and what's not good. To harness customers' new product input, 3M has opened nearly 24 customer innovation centers throughout the world, including sites in the United States, Brazil, Germany, India, China, and Russia. Innovation centers not only generate plenty of customer-driven new product ideas, but also help 3M establish productive long-term customer relationships. So, so remember, there's two things we're trying to accomplish here. We want to establish, um, we want new product ideas that are more productive, and then we want long-term customer relationships. Now, typically located near customer research facilities, innovation centers engage 3M's corporate customers directly in the innovation process. The idea behind the center is to gain richer understanding of the customer needs and link them to 3M technologies. So basically, we need to always be understanding what is the demand, what is the need, and how can we improve what we have. In a typical customer visit, a customer team meets with 3M marketing and technology experts who pepper them with open-ended questions such as, next, together, the customer and 3M teams visit the world of innovation showroom. They are exposed to more than 40 3M technology platforms, core technologies in areas like optical films and reflective materials, abrasives, and adhesives. Then, the interaction often sparks novel connections and solutions to the customer's needs. For instance, 3M and customer Visteon Corporation, an automobile supplier, have worked together at the development of the next generation concept vehicle. It incorporates 3M technologies and originally developed automated applications. Remember something, this was 2012 when they came up with this. Nowadays, we're talking about AI, we're talking about automation. Well, that's what they already were ahead of the curve when we talk about automated applications. What do you think they're trying to do with ChatGPT? Automate the process, or decrease the time and the effort that's needed for the individual. Visteon's visit to the Innovation Center led to the idea of using 3M's 3D technology for navigation displays, insulate materials to reduce noise, and optical films to hide functional elements of the dashboard unless the driver wants them displayed. So this is a good way we can do that. The other reason why this is good because you can show that you care about the customer, that you want to make things according to how they would like to purchase it. In other words, they'll be part of the process in which that, for example, let's say I want to buy certain types of a product but that product wasn't or isn't available currently. Say, okay, well, this is what I think we should have. Let me tell the company that's what they should have. And then once they figure it out by asking marketing criteria, product development criteria, right? Then they can get a blueprint for what to make and basically what should be made. Not of course the engineering behind it, but what should be made, which is one of the hardest things to do. Now let's talk about crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is inviting broad communities of people, customers, employees, and independent scientists and researchers, and even the public at large, into the new product innovation process. Now, crowdsourcing, I'm glad that they mentioned that crowdsourcing can be used in many different industries. So, one is if you're coming up with a creative project, definitely crowdsourcing is something important. If you want to know what people want, crowdsourcing is important. Or if you want to know what they want, what they think should be improved in the process, or before, or in the middle of it, or even sometimes just tweaking things at the end. Also, crowdsourcing also is important. Remember that with crowdsourcing, it throws the innovation doors wide open, inviting broad communities of people, customers, employees, independent scientists, and researchers, and even the public at large into the product innovation process. Because basically, your customers are going to tell you what they want to buy and what they should be produced. So once you have your customers saying that, and you have the general community as a consumer, let's say as a society saying what they want, then you'll know for sure what should be produced. So basically, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like I have an older product, I want to make a new product. What should the newer product be? Well, let me ask my customers. Here's the older product. How can I make it better so that way I can provide the greatest value for you? Okay, give me some feedback. What do you think? Okay. What would you like it to do? Or then it could be as simple as saying, what would you like it to do for you? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's basically what it is. Now let's talk. So it's as simple as that. Okay? You just need an open forum and you need an open medium where you can get people to communicate their ideas, as in the what, the why, and the how. Right? So the what, in terms of what is the product, why is this? Is it? You can talk about the why in terms of why is it not sufficient anymore, or why does this need to be improved? And then how should it be improved? Well, the how, the first stage is the features. Okay, once you have the features, then we come up with our R&D to come up with the engineering. Okay? Now, Netflix also has their own example of this, where they've went from being something where they did everything through the mail. Okay, so that what they used to do was they had a service where you would pay a monthly service. I'm just summarizing what they said here because we're focusing on understanding and rather than just group like reading everything word for word. So using the example of Netflix on how it improved. Basically it asked the customers, what would you prefer? Are you enjoying basically? Do you think 3 CD, for example, what they would do is they pay for service where you have 3 DVDs they would send out, and when they return them, so once you return them, they'll send you another new one. Okay, so what happens is that they said, okay, would you prefer? Do you like having these three DVDs? Do you want more, or would you prefer to have online access too? Oh yes, we like to have online access too, instead of just having the physical. In other words, would you prefer the physical DVDs, or would you prefer to watch it online? Oh, we would prefer to watch it online. Okay. They said, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna phase out the DVDs. So for the time, um, current time period, basically, you'll be able to access current DVDs. And then what they do is, well, they completely phased out the DVDs, and they said, okay, guess what? We can even make this even cheaper. We don't have to send this back and forth to the mail. So what they did was they made it more convenient for the customer and they reduced costs by making access to, they can watch, giving them access online to all these DVDs, okay, to all these movies, whatever, TV shows, etc. All this content is now accessible online. So what they did, they said, okay, we're going to phase all that out, the DVDs, and just access everything online because it's cheaper, faster, more efficient, and customers like it more to access it online. So that's what it is. And when they did it, of course, they're asking them which one would they prefer because they weren't used to doing it online, but they're thinking, well, if I don't have to send the DVDs in back to Netflix and I can just watch as many as I want online, with of course the paid monthly service, then that's better. So that's one example of how they were concretely able to save money and improve their service. And if you consider, yes, there is a cost of creating this website with all the storage and everything and all the users. There's quite a bit of cost involved in it. And also, you wait compared to all the shipping costs. You see, for each customer, not just one customer, even if you consider one customer, let's say every month they have 3 DVDs they use, right? Maybe 4 or whatever it is. Right? The cost of it, it's not a lot, but then you multiply that by 12. Maybe it's just a couple dollars or something. Okay. All right, that's already, what is that? $25. You multiply by a million customers, the cost of the shipping that is $25 million. What they said was, okay, in the long run, it's cheaper for us to have this website. Of course, you have to have the domain, you have to have the storage, and you have to have the IT people, you need the facilities, etc. But in the long run, it's cheaper to have that, and the point is, our business can grow. The subscription model is where it's at. That's where a business can grow more anyway. So not only was it from the customer's point of view, finding out what the demand is, but it's also from long-term viability in terms of our business model. Okay, so that's what Netflix did. Now let's define some terms here. Now we're right now we're technically they're going into detail about each phase of that process that we looked at earlier that I basically defined, but I'm going to start with a general definition. I start out with a general definition. Now I'll let the book give some examples and some more detailed explanations. Now for the first point of definition is the idea screening. An idea screening is a screening new product ideas to spot good ideas and drop poor ones as soon as possible. So what we want to do is look at what's a good idea. Now there's criteria behind the good idea. What's a good and bad idea? Good and bad idea basically is there a demand for it? And can it improve or enhance product? doesn't that either exists, or come up with something that doesn't exist. So can we do it for cheaper, or can we do it for greater value? Both ways is value to the customer. Okay? Remember, it helps you spot good ideas and drops poor ones as soon as possible. Product development costs rise greatly in the later stages, so many companies want to go ahead with those products ideas so they turn into profitable products. So in other words, it needs to be a demand. It needs to have show value that it does something better for the customer, and also it needs to be profitable for the company. It has to have all of those. It can't just be it's a better idea, but okay, can we market it? Can we make money from it? Well, those are some things. Okay. Now, many companies require their executives to write up new product ideas as a standard format that can be reviewed by a new product committee. The write-up describes the the service, the proposed customer value proposition, the target market, and the competition. So, if we think about this for a moment, what we're doing is we're putting together a formal idea, and we're gathering all the information as an outline. So we first start with what is it, the what, what is it? It's a product or service. Then we say the how or the why, which is the proposed customer value proposition, meaning what is the value of the customer in the market? What is the value of the customer? In what market is it? In terms of what industry and what segment? And then what is a compared to the competition? Is someone already doing it? If yes, can we do it better than them? Or can we do it in a different way that also creates interest and value for the customer? Just like this, right? For example, Nintendo came out before Sony, right? Sony PlayStation. So you had those two consoles. Well, Sony wanted to make their own version. They thought had a better value and was profitable. So what they said is, well, we don't care that Nintendo has one. Or even before Nintendo was Atari. So if we go back even further, Atari has something, yeah, but Nintendo has something else. Maybe it's a better technology. Okay. And then after Nintendo with the cartridges is better than the older form of the cartridges. And then with the with the Sony PlayStation as the first one that was CD, later became a DVD, right? And then the latest PlayStations are now Blu-ray. And then of course after that now we have storage on the device itself. Okay, so we have the consoles. There's some competition, but they offer different things. They offer different games, they offer different features. And then also for the handhelds, it's okay, well, we want to make a handheld version. So we can expand our market out. That's a different game console. Okay, for example, if I say game console, like gaming, let's say gaming. The game console market, right? Are we talking about handheld, or are we talking about like stationary, like ones that doesn't fit in the palm of your hand? Those are two different type of segments. Now, each one basically has its own various technologies and designs. Um, so some can be niched according to the technology, or niche compared based upon their own platform. But essentially, all of them are pretty much in the same niche. It's a game console area, unless it's a handheld console, and that's something different. One marketing expert proposes the RWW, which is real win worth doing. That's the RWW, real win worth, referring to doing. New product screening framework that asks questions. First is it real? Is this something you can really make? Okay. Is there a real, oh, sorry, yeah, excuse me, is there a real need and desire for a product that will, for customers to buy it? Is there a clear product concept that will have such a product to satisfy the market? Okay. So first, is there a need for this? Second of all, is there a product that can satisfy and have customer and company? Um, Second of all, can we win? How can we be successful? Does the product offer sustainable competitive advantage? Does the company have the resources to make the product success? In other words, you can have a product idea all you want, but if you don't have the capability of making it, then it's not going to be viable for you. What you can do is you can partner with somebody who's able to manufacture it, or you can propose that something be made for you according to your specified and customized specifications. So that's possible. Or you can create a company in which that people have different roles in the company are able to do that. As in, one each person in the company, let's say the management does like the business end of it, and the other part does like the technology, so you can compartmentalize it. But ultimately, you have to have a formal way of being able to say, can we actually produce this product or service? And then the third thing is, so we have an idea, we have the ability to make the product or service. If you have a good idea, second question, and then we have the idea that we can that's viable. Then we say, okay, can we make the product or service? If that's a yes, we continue. And the third thing is it worth doing? In other words, is it profitable? Does the company fit the product overall growth strategy? So one thing could be the actual strategy, business strategy of the company. Is it offer sufficient potential? What's the long-term perspectives for sales and profitability? And the company should be able to answer yes to all of those as far as RWW. Remember, the RWW stands for real, win, and worth. Okay. Is this a real product or service? Can we do it? Meaning, can we win? Can we do it? And is it worth doing? Now let's talk about product concept. This is a detailed version of the new product idea stated in a meaningful consumer terms. Translation. This is an idea that can be communicated to the customer in terms of its worth. You understand what I'm saying? So as far as the product concept is concerned, it's important to distinguish between a product idea and a product concept. For the product image, the product idea is the idea of a possible product the company can see itself offering. Okay? That's that part. But when you talk about the product concept, that's a detailed version of the idea stating in meaningful consumer terms. That's the product concept. And then finally, we have the product image. It's the way consumers perceive our actual or potential product. We need to see it in that order because we want to see this is an idea that's viable. Then we need to see the details of the product. And then we need to be able to communicate the value of the product or service. Just like this. If I say, okay, I want to come up with something new. Well, let's come up with a flying car. That's a cool idea. Nobody's doing that. It can solve problems. Okay, this is an idea. Then the concept is, okay, what would be involved, as in what are the specification and benefits of the flying car? And the product image is, how do we market the flying car? Okay, basically, that's what it is. Now, as it relates to concept development, let's think about this for a moment now. Let's suppose that car manufacturers developed a practical battery-powered all-electric car. That's starting off with the idea, right? Its initial prototype is a sleek, sporty roadster convertible which sells for more than $100,000. And this is, of course, as of 2012. However, in the near future, it plans to introduce more affordable mass-market version that will compete with today's hybrid cars. The 100% electric car will accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.6 seconds. Remember something, and if you take this in the context that this was published in 2012, so we have to look at it in terms of that. It traveled more than 300 miles on a single charge and recharged in 45 minutes from a normal 120-volt electric outlet, and cost about 1 penny per mile to power. So 1 penny is 300 miles. 1 penny is $3. So yeah, so 300 pennies is $3 because 100 pennies is $1. So nowadays, what they said is they come up with a new product line. What did they do? They improved upon the range of on the charge. They went from 300 to 500. And then the competition says, well, I can get in the market too. I can serve that niche too. or I can serve that segment too by saying, okay, well, I'm going to come up with one that goes 900 miles. So you're now you can introduce a similar product, but just better, has better performance. Which one do you think the consumer is going to purchase? The one that offers more for the money, right? Same. It's the basic idea. Looking ahead, the marketers tasked to develop this new product into alternative product concepts. Because the idea with marketing is we need to communicate value to the customer. We need to find out how attractive each concept is to the customers and choose the best one. It might create following concept cars for the electric car. Number one concept. Let's say the first concept is an affordable price mid-size car designed with a second family car to be used around town or running errands and visiting friends. So that's one value proposition. That's one product concept. Number two is a mid-price sporty compact appealing to young singles and couples. That's the second concept. So when we're talking about concept, we're talking about ideas that can be understood as a benefit. Okay? Versus features would be more of the initial stage. And this thing always pops up when I don't need it to pop up. No, I don't need that open things. A green car appealing to environmentally conscious people who want practical, low-polluting transportation. Okay? That's another product concept. Or you have a high-end mid-size utility vehicle or SUV, appealing to those who love the space that SUVs provide but lament the poor gas mileage. So it's a mid-size utility vehicle. It's different. So each one of these concepts effectively is a product line because of the benefit and the value that it serves and proposes to consumers. Now let's talk about concept testing, which is testing new product concepts with a group of target consumers to find out if the concept has strong consumer appeal. What you do is you have something called a sample. What a sample is giving you the full version of the product, but you just give it out on a limited basis. For example, there are many applications of this. One could be just like your product tester, right? You get the product for free, your product tester, and you report back on the results, your opinions, etc. The other one is you could be somebody who's sourcing a product from the supplier, the factory, whatever, and they give you one free sample or one cheap sample, and then you decide, should I buy more? So those are two different things. One is something that hasn't been released to the market or hasn't been mass produced. The other one is that's already in the process or has been mass produced. So yes, we need to remember that we need to test new product concepts with groups of target customers. Target customers are the ones in your demographics that are most likely to buy your product or service. Understand? That's the idea. So, more firms routinely test new product concepts with consumers before attempting to turn them into actual new products. So what you have is what's called a prototype, which is a proposed version of it before it's fully put onto the market. As in, when you have your proposed prototype, you can say, okay, let's test it out to make sure it works, make sure that people like it. Then if there's any modifications to do, we do that. If not, we can release it to the market. Okay, so that's your concept testing and also your product sampling as well. Okay. Now, more concrete and physical presentation of the product will increase the reliability of the concept test. After being exposed to the concept, consumers then may be asked to react to the answering questions about them as well. So it's a proposal, it's like a public proposal of a product. That's in a sampling form, that's in a limited form. The idea is you don't want to, it's kind of like cooking food, right? I mean, you can always add spices and flavoring on top of it, but first you sample it and see, is it cooked well enough now? If not, let's cook it more. You want to test it to make sure it meets expectations of the consumers before it gets released. The answers to such questions will help the company decide which concept has the strongest appeal, meaning the features, product concepts, and the benefits. For example, the last question asked about the consumer's intention to buy. Suppose 2% of your consumers say they definitely would buy another, and another 5% say that probably the company would project those figures into a full population of their target group, estimate sales volume. Even then, the estimate is uncertain because people do not always stated carry out their stated intentions. So, in other words, even if they say they were likely to buy, did they actually buy? So it's more like the other way around. It's more like you have to you have to understate. You actually have to undervalue or understate what the what the interpretation is from the product testing is. Okay, so in other words, just because, for example, 50% says yes doesn't mean you can't assume that 50% would actually buy. Doesn't mean zero would buy, but doesn't necessarily mean that 50%, whatever amount they said, would buy. Another thing we need to consider is the marketing strategy development. Now, designing an initial marketing strategy for a new product is based upon the product concept. That's why I said it has to be in that order. For example, suppose the car maker finds the concept 3 for an electric car tests best. The next step is to make sure we do our marketing strategy development. Remember, this marketing strategy development has 3 phases, 3 parts. Actually. The first part is describe the target market. So the target market basically refers to the industry that it's in. So what industry? In other words, we don't sell cars in the IT industry because it doesn't make sense. The type of people that buy computers may not be the same type of people who are looking. In other words, the people who are looking to buy a computer are not the people who necessarily are looking to buy a car, and vice versa. Very, very basic, common sense idea, but that's what it is. You need to make sure you're in the relevant market in terms of the industry that's creating that product. Secondly, we need to look at the client value proposition. So we're in the right market, we're in the right place for selling it. Then we need to make sure what we value we're offering to the customer and communicating to the customer is sufficient or is relevant to what they're looking for. That's the value proposition. And we want to look at how many can we sell. It's the sales. Market share. Who's the market leader? Okay. And how much market share or what projected market share do you think we're going to get? And then also we need to consider profit goals. For each item, what's the profit margin that we're aiming for? Okay, so, because we know our gross profit based upon other items. I mean, in other words, we know our general expenditures, expenses for producing the product, including everything from R&D to manufacturing to marketing to all the internal expenses as well. And then we need to compare it, then we need to come up with a pricing scheme. So then we can project what we think we're going to get for profits. Okay. The target market is, so for example, our target market can be a younger, well-educated, moderate, uh, moderate to higher income individuals, couples, or small families seeking practical, environmentally responsible transportation. This is where we need to know our customer. What kind of customer are they? We need to know the income level in terms of what can they afford. We need to know their buying and spending habits, how often they buy, and how large purchases do they make, and what do they value in their purchases. And then in terms of the place, do we buy online or do we buy offline? And then also we need to consider the age of the people as well. So that's all part of demographics. Now, there are certain questions you need to ask yourself about the product, okay? For example, you need to understand the concept of the product. You need to understand the concept. Okay. Number two, you need to understand the product's performance. What can the product do? Number three, what are the benefits of the product? What are the major benefits? Number four, what are the advantages compared to your competition? In other words, what do you do better than your competition? What is your competitive advantage? What improvements can be made in the product? That is either one you have already, you're working on, or compared to what should be made, which is the improvements. What improvements can be made of a similar product? And what use would you prefer in the product itself? So this is like a usage functionality part of it. What would be a reasonable price charged for the product? We need to look at the market in terms of what the market average is. What would be involved in your decision to buy the product or service? So I'm trying to put my mouse here. So this is the buying decision process. And how would you buy this product? This would be location. Is this online or is this going to be in person? Is it at a like brick and mortar place? Okay, those are some things to consider. Now let's define some terms here. Let's start off with talking about the business analysis. Now, in terms of business analysis, we need to understand that business analysis is a review of the sales, the costs, and the profit projections of the new product to find out whether these factors satisfy the company's objectives. So, based upon other factors, various factors, the company will decide how much profit it decides it needs to make on that product. So, one influential factor is the investment put into it, cost of it. Obviously, the profit has to be more than as in the overall amount of profit has to be more. In other words, what you make in profit has to be more than what the cost is by definition, because as you probably already know, profit is the difference between the cost and the revenue. Now, as far as product development, it's developing the product concept onto a physical product to ensure that the product idea can be turned into a workable market offering. So we start with an idea, then we produce the product. I've already showed a couple steps in between, but basically going from product idea to product production. Okay. As part of the product development itself. So that would be the idea to the production of the product. Remember that here R&D or engineering develops a product concept into a physical product. So that's how that works. The product development stage, however, now calls for a huge jump in investment. So once we've got past a certain stage, now we have to decide: are we going all in with investment, or are we not going to go all in? If we go in all in with the investment, basically put the cost in for the research and development. Okay. The R&D department will develop and test one or more physical versions of the product concept. Okay. R&D hopes to design a prototype that will surely satisfy and excite consumers and things that can be produced quickly and at budgeted costs. Alright, so we have to consider things have to be produced within a timely manner so that we can satisfy the demand for the customer, but at the same time we need to produce more for more revenue as well. Often products undergo rigorous tests to make sure that they perform safely and effectively. And then the consumers will find value in them. Right, so we go from testing to implementing. Well, the testing basically is the implementation of the product. So it's already produced, now we test it to make sure the features match up with the benefits. Now let's talk about test marketing. Let's talk more about test marketing. That is. Remember that the test marketing is a stage of new product development in which the product and its proposed marketing program are tested in realistic market settings. That's where you have customers have this interaction with you to tell you what they like, what they think could be better, what can be used, as we were talking about earlier. Okay. Basically, it's the targeting and positioning strategy, advertising, distribution, pricing, branding, packaging, and budget levels. Not in that order, but of course, budgeting levels has to be, of course, in the beginning. But the positioning is where in the market is it going to be in terms of segment as positioning. Targeting is who's going to be your customer. Sorry, target marketing is which market is that product going to be in. Positioning is on what segment is it going to be in. Okay. We need to consider our advertising in terms of getting reach in the market, in terms of people being aware of the product. We need to have distribution, so it's sold and we send out our supply out to the retailers. We need to consider how much to charge, which is the pricing. The branding is the slogan, the logo, association with the company. So each company has different brands depending on its product line, and the branding will give value to it based upon what is communicated in value in terms of how customers perceive that. And also your packaging, that's for logistics and protection of the price, so that you don't get damaged while being transported to the customer. And then you also need to obviously consider, and this is probably the first thing, as I said before, is how much money can you spend on this project. So just want to make that clear. So highlight that, right? The amount of test marketing needed varies with each new product. Test marketing costs can be high and it takes time that may allow competitors to gain advantages. When the costs of developing and introducing products are low, or when management is already confident about the new product, the company may do little or no test marketing. In fact, test marketing by consumer goods firms have been declining in recent years. Companies often do not test markets, excuse me, market simple line extensions or copies of successful competitors' products. The real question is, are you confident that that product is going to sell well and is going to gain market share? Okay, so that's what it is. Because in the market, you have a total amount of customers. And then, based upon your segment, you have your niche. And that niche is like, okay, for these types of customers, for this type of product. And if you know that you're well positioned and you know that what you have is valuable and you can easily show it's valuable, and it's not a then you're not as concerned about what your competition's doing, although you should be aware of what your competition has. However, when introducing a new product requires a big investment, which risks are high, or when management is not sure of the product or marketing program, a company may do a lot of test marketing. So if you're not entirely sure what the result's going to be, you can do test marketing, opinion panels, you can do product testing, surveys, etc. So, and also sampling in terms of letting people try out the new like coffee, the new food, the new whatever it is, the new product, give their opinion on it. And if people of different demographics think, if you get enough of them giving you positive feedback, then it definitely would be something that's possible to release to the market. Okay, remember that the real part of branding, that the real part of value that's associated with branding, besides overall reputation, is the value, the experience they get with the product or service. Now, with product is something called transformational value, which is basically like you start off with a product, and you use the product because it allows the customer to get to the desired, to solve a desired problem, or to get to a desired goal. Trans- Transformational value. An alternative is to be extensive and as an alternative to extensive and costly standard test markets, companies can use controlled test markets or simulated test markets. Basically, smaller scale, different ways. In controlled test markets, Symphony IRI behavior scan, new products and tactics are tested among controlled groups of customers and stores. So you can basically, the idea is you start small, you test it out a smaller way, you test it on in only limited areas first, and then you build upon it. Well, this area was good, let's try on the other area, let's try on the other area, let's try on the other area. You do it one at a time is another way of doing it. Within test stores, Symphony RRI controls such factors as self-placement, price, in-store promotions, and products being tested. All those considerations. Now, by combining information on each consumer's purchase with consumer demographic and TV viewing information, Behavior Scan can provide store-by-store, week-by-week reports of sales, tested products, and impact in store and in home marketing efforts. Technically, this is ongoing because even if it's been released to the market, you still need to test the sales of the product. And companies can also test new products using simulated test market, which researchers measure consumer responses to new products and marketing tactics in laboratory stores or simulated shopping environments. There's some companies like Frito-Lay that's done this. P&G has done this before too. Let's talk about commercialization, which is towards the end of the steps here. Commercialization is introducing a new product to the market. So after you've done all this, now we can finally introduce the product to the market. Test marketing gives management the information needed to make a final decision about whether to launch the product. This is the idea. If the company goes ahead with commercialization, introducing the new product into the market will face high costs. The company may need to build or rent a manufacturing facility. And in the case of a major new consumer product, it may spend hundreds of millions of dollars for advertising, sales promotion, and other marketing offers in its first year. So, of course, in the first year, you have the maximum cost, and then it takes time to recover the R&D costs and actually turn a profit. So some are like that, some are not like that. Depends on if it's already a tested product where people already want it. So if it's like a fast food restaurant and you already know people want that, then it's there's nothing really to test. You just start releasing it. Any new other products within the same business that are added as part of the product line probably will need to, if they want to be successful, to be tested out in advance to see if it should go more public and released to the public and not just to be tested out. So the company launching a new product must decide on its introduction timing. So you might ask, what is that? If the car maker's new battery-powered electric car will eat into the sales of other cars, introduction may be delayed. If the car can be improved upon further or the economy is down, the company will wait on the following year to make the launch. However, if the competitors are ready to introduce their own battery-powered models, the company may push to introduce the new car sooner. And it will depend on how much they can sell, and it will depend on what they can make for a profit. The first thing is, of course, how much can they sell? Because no matter what your profit margin is, and by the way, margin refers to either a percentage or the total amount of margin. The total amount of profit that's made per product, or otherwise known as per unit. So basically, it's the difference between the revenue from the sale and the expenses. Okay, that can be measured as a flat amount, or that could be measured as a percentage. Okay? So what you can do is you can take a percentage of an amount, depending on how you calculate this, whatever it's easier to calculate and track and manage. It might be better to use a percentage because it's a percentage of an amount. It's a percentage of the expenditures. Excuse me. not the expenditures. It's a percentage of the revenue coming in. Is the profit margin. Remember something that revenue. You need revenue and you need expenses to calculate a profit. Okay? But that profit is basically a percentage of the revenue. Right now, so you need to consider when you release it. You need to consider how many sales you're going to make of it, and then how much profit per item. So if there's very little profit of the item, you need to sell more. And is it more likely in a bad economy to do that? To launch it sooner? Is it better to launch it sooner? Or is it because there's costs associated with it? Or is it better to wait and have less costs? It depends on what the situation is specifically. You may also broadly call it market conditions, but a lot of it has, in this case, has to do with economic conditions, which is environmental factors. Next, the company must decide where to launch the product. When they say where, they're referring to is it a physical store or is it an online store? Maybe both. Depending on what it is, certain products are best to be in physical stores. For example, cars. You need to test drive a car. You can't just buy a car without test driving it. Okay? You need a physical store for cars. Not always. Like, for example, if you're buying and selling cars, in other words, suppose you have a market of used cars where you buy from consumers and then you're reselling whatever you bought from consumers to other consumers in various channels, then that's another way. But usually, some products refer to you need to have physical storage for it, whether it be food, cars, things like that, or almost anything where you need to actually try it first before you buy it. That's also clothing as well. And some services, not only products but services, some services you need a physical location. For example, a hospital. Okay, you can't do that by internet. Okay? Let's suppose you're putting on a entertainment show. Let's say let's say we're making a movie, like a movie theater, concert hall, things like that. And then, of course, for nonprofits as well, they usually need a location too for various reasons, including operations and interactions with the public. Now, as relates to managing, we want to go to our next place where we're talking about managing new product development. So here's the concept. I want you to get the concept down first. We have a new product, okay? Sorry, we have a product that we want to develop first. It's a new product. Remember, this is for new products because existing products needs to be managed as well, but not in the same way. In terms of the development, it will be a new product because you don't develop an old product, you develop a new product. Pretty basic, right? Okay, so the new product development process highlights the important activities in which you need to find, develop, and introduce new products. Let me repeat that. You need, for new product development, you need three things. You need to find it, develop it, and then you introduce it to the market. When you say find, it's basically like we need to come up with an idea and a concept. Develop, we need to manufacture it and test it. Introduce, we need to bring it to the market. And there could be some steps in between, right before the develop and introduce, in terms of test marketing. Okay, basically, it's very basic. You need to have the idea. You need to make whatever the idea is, and translate into a concept. Then we need to actually sell it, put it into the market, right? However, the new product development involves more than just going through a set of steps. Companies must take a holistic approach to managing this process. We need to look at the big picture, holistic approach. That's the overall picture. Okay? You can't just look at one idea, think that represents the whole thing. No. We need to look at the big picture first. Successful new product development requires a customer-centered. Okay, what is it based upon? The customer. From what point of view is it? The customer. What is it called? Customer-centered. So it needs to be customer-centered. It needs to be team-based. Customer-centered for external considerations. Team-based for internal operational considerations. And then we need a systematic effort. We need an actual system behind the all aspects of it, including its delivery. Okay. Now, let's define some terms. First, we have something called customer-centered new product development. Some of that sounds pretty straightforward. It's from the point of view of the customer and it's for the benefit of the customer. Thus, it's customer-centered. Literally, it's a new product development that focuses on finding new ways to solve customer problems and create more customer satisfying experiences. So basically, we're trying to accomplish two things. Number one, we're trying to solve a customer problem, which is part of the idea. Second of all, we want to make a satisfying customer experience. That's the customer experience. So it's not good enough just to produce a product that has features and possibly even benefits, but the experience of using it needs to be at to the at least to the customer's expectation. Okay. Now, there are several companies that have done this who are clever, like P&G, and P&G has ways that they did it, where they do crowdsourcing. We talked about before. They connect and develop crowdsourcing. They had a site that did that, urged customers to submit their own ideas and suggestions for new products and services. Okay? So they crowdsourced and did that. Basically, crowdsourcing, it's just another way of saying opinion gathering. For 3 months, researchers and designers followed about 30 young consumers on their daily living tasks and quizzed them on how they used their money, where they kept it, and what they thought about it, and which mobile and online banking programs they used. We want to know the average usage of the product by the customer. We need to know how they would use their money to purchase the product, as in how often and how much. And then we need to know in what way did they purchase the product. So this will tell us what's most convenient. What should be the payment processors? Okay, that would be one thing. Second of all, we need to know actually we're going backwards here, but basically we need to know the features and benefits of the product that's satisfying. That's step one. Step two, we need to know how many of them the average person is going to buy and how much are they willing to pay for it, and in total. The third thing, we need to know what payment processors are people willing to use to purchase it. Now let's talk about team-based new product development. Now this is internal. Remember something, we have internal and we have external marketing. Internal refers to the operations within the company. External refers to the information relating to our supply chain and also relating to our customers as far as the target market. For team-based new product development, it's literally an approach to developing new products in which various company departments work closely together, overlapping the steps, the new product development process to save time and increase effectiveness. We want to make this in the most time efficient way. We need to make this in the most cost effective way. Cost effective and also feature and benefit effectiveness as well. We have all those considerations to think about. Now, the teams-based approach does have some limitations that you should consider. However, for example, it sometimes creates more organizational tension and confusion than more orderly sequential approach. However, in rapidly changing industries facing increasingly shorter PLCs, the recent rewards in fast and flexible product development far exceed the risks. So part of that is we have different departments working together, having their inputs on how and what and when and why things should be produced. Companies that combine a customer-centered approach with a team-based new product development gain a big competitive advantage by gaining the right new products to make fast. So when we produce the product, we need to see it from different angles. Okay, we need to see it from a business standpoint. We need to see it from a marketing standpoint. We need to see it from an operational, manufacturing standpoint, and we need to see it from a customer, which is, I guess, marketing standpoint. We need to see it from a customer standpoint. So remember, it's the company. We have various company departments that are working closely together, cross-functional teams, overlapping steps in the product development process, which is basically what I was saying earlier. Because, well, let me tell you why that's necessary. Okay, we looked at the drawbacks. There could be some problems. Let's look at why it's necessary and what are the benefits. Why is it necessary? Because we need to understand. We need to understand each function. We can't just make something and not understand their budget. We can't just make something and not understand the procedure, process, the project manager behind this. We can't just do it and not understand our customer in terms of what they're looking for at this point, what's valuable for them at this point. See? We need to also make sure that it's a product that meets the regulations that the government of that country has. That's also, and then finally, we need to make sure that we are able to get fulfillment and procurement in terms of getting all the parts to make this either through manufacturing process or from our supplier. Also, we need to make sure that our design of the product is working in terms of features, benefits, and also finally in terms of packaging and delivery. Okay, so we need to look at all those aspects: the logistics department, finance department, the basically accounting department / finance department, the legal department, the marketing department. Understand the buying department, operations. See, all those things, and then finally the manufacturing / R&D department. Okay. All right, so keep that in mind. There's lots to consider there. If you can take people, let's say a department head from each one of those departments and say, okay, this would be what would be most effective from our department's point of view. Say, okay, how can we make a product that can best accomplish all the goals from each one of the departments? That will make sure that the product will be not only the right product or service, but also be done in the right way. Do you understand? So let's talk about systematic new product development. When we talk about systematic, we need to have a organized way of doing things that makes sense, that's repeatable and understandable. So basically, as we talked about the holistic and systematic, remember holistic refers to the overall view. Systematic has to do with an organized and scientific way of doing it. So mainly organized is systematic. Holistic refers to overall. So first thing what we do is you look at the overall idea first. In terms of factors such as goals and procedures and needs. Then we look at the systematic. What are the operations in which we can do this in the most efficient and effective way? That would be your project management, that would be management in general, and also have to do with the operational, well, I guess I get back to operational effects as well. Okay, so, and then of course time management, referring also back to project management. So there's other aspects that are pretty much um, subsidiaries of or under the same department of other other departments as well. Now, the company can appoint a respected senior person to the company's innovation manager. It can set up a web-based idea management software and encourage all company stakeholders, and meaning employees, suppliers, distributors, dealers, to become involved in finding and developing new products. Just like this, we take all those departments and put it together and say, okay, based on all these things, would be the most effective one we could come up with based upon our idea. Now, while we go into our suppliers and say, okay, what do you have now that's newer, that's better? You can look at it from that point. You can also look at the procurement of among all the stages in the supply chain. Okay? So with suppliers, it can be better materials, it can be more features, or maybe better deals in terms of quantity and price per item. Better, and also you can get deals on products and also other ways that we can reduce costs on logistics and customs as well. Now here we have a case study of Lego, and this was their way of building customer relationships. I'll let you actually read that. So they have their own unique way of building customer relationships. And what you can do when you read that, you can say, okay, what did I learn from how they did that? So found more efficient, basically what they did is they found more efficient ways of producing things. They found interactive ways of customers giving their experience and their suggestions on what should be produced, feedback, those types of things. Now, new product development in turbulent times. This refers to like bad economic times. When tough economic times hit, or when a company faces financial difficulties, management must be tempted to reduce spending on new product development. However, such thinking is usually short-sighted. By cutting back on new products, the company may make itself less competitive during its downturn. Okay? Now, there is a saying in marketing, okay? This is something I learned over the past year or two. The person who wins in marketing is the person who spends the most. Now, that sounds like an unfair statement because it's basically elitism. However, it does drive home the point that you shouldn't decrease your budget, but you should make the process in which that you have more efficient, more cost effective, right? But you should not cut back your marketing because you need to be in constant contact with it. You need to be in contact with the customer about value and that what you're offering to them is valuable. So in fact, tough times may call for even greater new product development as the company struggles to better align its market offerings with changing consumer demands and tastes. Yes, you have to adapt the situation. So suppose your more expensive items are not selling. Maybe we can find one that's cheaper that you can sell more of. So instead of selling A, you're selling B. Okay, but you need to be selling. You can't just rely on A and then just say, okay, well, because A doesn't sell, well, the company goes under. No, you need to have alternate products you can sell. In difficult times, innovation more often helps than hurts in making companies more competitive and positioning it better for the future. can have different, for example, you can have product lines. Okay, so maybe, for example, maybe you don't push your higher priced product lines, right? What you do, maybe you push your mid price to low price product lines more. You do more marketing of that, you do more production, you do more marketing, and you just cut back a little bit on the other part. See, innovation is a messy process. It's hard to measure and harder to manage. So this is what's difficult about it. When revenues and earnings decline, executives often conclude that the innovation efforts just aren't worth it. Okay, but that's their misunderstanding. It is difficult to come to that conclusion. I mean, but it is what it is. So better to focus on the tried and true than the risky money on untested ideas. This is why having a product that's already selling is best. Um, the contrary view, of course, is that innovation is both a vaccine against the market downturns, an elixir that rejuvenates growth. In today's economy, for example, imagine how much better off General Motors might have fared if it matched the pace of innovation with Honda or Toyota. So innovation, basically, the way it relates to this is that can you find a technology that allows you to make the products for cheaper? Can you make the products for cheaper? Maybe you can be more efficient in your process, right? Maybe you can source the products. Um, maybe you can get better deals on the products. Or maybe you can fix the inefficiency in the product itself. So there's different things with innovation that you can do. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about product lifecycle strategies. After launching the new product, management wants the product to enjoy a long and happy life after. It does not expect the product to sell forever. The company wants to earn a decent profit to cover all the effect and risk that went into launching it. Management is aware that each product will have a life cycle, although its exact shape and length is not known to advance. So let's think of this concept for a second. Why do you think there's a product life cycle? Well, because something better will come out that will replace it. For example, think about how the music is delivered. Well, we started from an analog device, and we went to digital, right? That was a major step, right? So we went from a record player to a cassette to a CD, and then what's next after CD? We went to digital, meaning we stored this on a physical device. And then simultaneously decided also they're going to store this on computer, right? And then online, or what they call cloud computing, right? So basically, what happens is when you have something better that comes out, people no longer going to buy the product that's not as good. For example, do people still buy records? Well, maybe some people do, as a novelty. Do people still buy cassettes? No. How about CDs? Not really. DVDs? Yes, for movies. You see, who's buying a Sony Walkman? That was an 80s thing. Even the Sony Discman, as cool as that is, although actually that would be probably something cool I'd want to get, but although the product is good and it works well, they have better solutions. So once a better solution comes out, people abandon the old solution for the better solution. Now, here's some distinct stages we need to consider in the product life cycle. First of all, we need to look at the product development stage like we've been talking about. It's when the company finds and develops a new product idea. Remember that during the product development, sales are zero and the company's investment costs amount. So in the beginning is when you have the greatest cost, least amount of profit, and then as after you've done that, sales start to increase, then the profit, you'll start earning profit, and then you'll make up for the cost of the initial cost from step one. Now, from step two, introduction is a period of slow sales growth. The product is introduced in the market, like I just told you about. That's when you start earning your money. It will take a while to get that. Profits are non-existent in the stage because of heavy expenses. That's from step one. Now, when we go to growth, this is where it starts to become popular. Now, growth is a period of rapid market acceptance and increase in profits. So, now when they say increase in profits, that means the total amount of profit, not per item. The total amount has increased. And then after that, once it's made a whole bunch of money and it's made its profit, then we have a maturity where it's a slowdown, as in the market has been saturated, where there's a certain amount of people have already purchased it and they don't need to buy more of them. So it's a slowdown on sales growth because the product has achieved acceptance by potential buyers. Okay, so let's just like this. Think of each time the new iPhone comes out, right? You got the product introduction. It starts making money, increase the profits, right? You have product acceptance. Then a year or two later, the new one comes out, going back, and then it's a cycle again, right? Some people they won't be selling. There won't be much sales of the old one because the new one's out. So once after the new one has come out, then you see the decline. See? Technically, the decline is from when the market is saturated all the way to in between to where the new prices come out. But definitely after the new one has come out, there's definitely a decline because people aren't buying the old one anymore, they're buying the new one. I'm putting this in very layman's terms, but that's basically what it is. So decline is the period where sales falls off and profits drop. When they say profits, they don't mean unit profits, unit item profits. They mean total amount of profit from all the sales. Okay. You can see from the line graph here where you have S as the vertical axis and S between S as the vertical axis and then horizontal axis is time. So it's profits and losses over time. With time, you have is subdivided into criteria. Sorry, for profits between profit losses and time, you have criteria such as product development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Alright, so keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons why you have product lines is because if you only have one product, it's not going to last very long. You're going to have to restart the whole process all over again. Versus if you have different product lines in the same year, you can fit more people in the market to buy cars or computers or whatever it is. Now, here's some definition in terms I'd like to tell you about. But before we do that, I want you to take a look at this picture here. When you look at this picture, it says some products die quickly, others stay in the mature stage for a long time. Why? If it's still making money and it's not being easily replaced, that's the mature stage. So, mature stage is basically it's already made it's already made X amount of money. That was the goal or whatever it could make from before, but it's still making money. So now it's mature stage, and that's mainly for products that are not new, but still in demand and still has still making money. That could be for example, bargain hunters who are looking for cheaper products that can be bought from the mature stage. It could be any number of things like that. So some brands are so famous that they're perpetually in the mature stage. Okay, all right, kind of like this Coca-Cola, right? They may add other product lines with it, right? But the thing is, it's already famous enough that people just buy it. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. Now remember, there's other things that uh, contribute to this. So we have style, fashion, and fad. Has this influences the market in terms of uh, how how well things are going to be sold and how long it will stay in the product life cycle. So if it's still fashionable, fashion refers to a currently accepted or popular style in a given field. It will stay after it's made money. It will stay in the mature stage. If the style is something that people like, people haven't stopped liking, and when I say style, I'm referring to a basic and distinctive mode of expression that refers to how it's differentiated itself, its value in the market in terms of its marketing message. Okay. That's usually done through branding. Okay. The last thing is a fad. Now, fad is kind of the opposite of what a style and a fashion can do. A fad is basically like the end phase of a fashion, basically. And a fad is basically a temporary period of unusually high sales driven by consumer enthusiasm and immediate product or brand popularity. So it's like if it's in style, or if it's no longer, it's if it's a style, such as such as clothing, that's a fad. A trend, a fad. It's only temporary. Those are the things. I mean, if you can get the most out of it during that period of time, it's okay. But that's not something you normally want to aim for. Okay. Now let's talk about the product life cycles for each one of those three in terms of the style, fashion, and fad. What we're going to do is look at a line graph. So for style, it starts out quite a bit and then it kind of levels off and is mostly general same curve. Now with the this is of course sales over time. Fashion and fad, it's also sales over time. For fashion, it basically peaks a lot and then declines quite a bit. And for fad, it goes up a lot and then declines back down to zero. Now let's talk about the different stages, okay, within this. Okay? We have the introduction stage. And so these are different stages in the product life cycle. Okay? So there's three concepts in the product life cycle, which is your style, fashion, and fad. But actually, in terms of stages, we have in the product life cycle we have the introduction stage, which is a new. This is for a new product is first distributed and made available to purchase. That's the introduction stage. And we need to consider the growth stage. This is similar to what I already said, but just a reiteration. Which product sales start climbing quickly? That's the growth stage. And after the growth stage, oh, by the way, before I continue, take a look when you get a chance. Take a look at this market, this case study of Kraft. Kraft makes like cheese and other type of products like that. They talk about their marketing and their product lines as well. As you can see from this picture here, take a look at everything they purchase. Take a look at everything that they make and how the approach to marketing is in terms of its branding and its marketing message. This is referring to the managing the PLC, the product life cycle. And so it says, despite its long list of familiar old brands, until recently Kraft has far too few good new products. It's now emphasizing product innovation. Basically, what they have is something that's a time-tested product. So if we go back here, just to remind you, that's a style. Basically, it's a time-tested style, classic style, and its branding will be according to that, but also there will be some innovations that will make it basically will make people can continue the interest based upon the innovation. Now, back to the stages of the product life cycle. I'm just showing that's one case example. You can look through. I won't read through it for you, but it's something to look through in terms of how they use them. Now, let's talk about the maturity stage, as I mentioned before. In the product life cycle stage, maturity stage is in which product sales growth slows or levels off. Okay? Notice it didn't crash like a fad. Basically, you've made most of your money. It's hit a peak, but it's still making money. It's not quite flat. It's going a little bit down, and then you'll have slight peaks and valleys, but it's mostly the same general trend. Okay, but it's still making money for you, so it's not a dead stage. Okay, now you can see here how American Greetings uses its branding and how it's modifying the market and it's influencing the market through what it does as well. That also prolongs some of the stages as well. And the last stage is the decline stage, in which the product sales decline. And that's after the maturity stage. And so when things are no longer selling like they used to, that's your decline stage. A lot of that has to do with the fact that there's a better product out there. So, for example, people don't buy VHSs anymore. They buy DVD players or Blu-ray players. And any product associated with that is being replaced as well. Okay? Any kind of product where they have a better technology behind it, then that's what happens. That product will be in the decline stage just as soon as a new technology is introduced. Now, here's just a summary, just so you can remember what we're talking about. This is a summary of the product lifecycle characteristics, objectives, and strategies. Remember, with characteristics, we have sales, costs, profits, customers, and competitors. Introduction, we need to consider the low sales, high cost per high cost per customer, negative, innovative, and few. Introduction. The growth, we need to consider rapidly rising sales, average cost per customer, rising profits, early adopters, and growing numbers. With maturity, we need to look at the fact that it's at its peak sales. We have a low cost per customer, high profits, middle majority. We have stable number and beginning to decline. So in the beginning, the cost per customer is high because we haven't made up the cost. Once we've made up enough sales and we've made up the cost, then the cost per customer is low. In the decline stage, we need to remember that we have declining sales, low cost per customer, declining profits, laggers, which basically means it's not doing much, and declining number. Now, for introduction, we need to understand our marketing objectives. For introduction, our objective is to create product awareness and trial, which means like you can try it out. For growth, our marketing objective is to maximize market share. For maturity, our goal is to maximize profit while defending market share. Now, in a decline, our marketing objective is to reduce expenditures and milk the brand. So, do we want to put money into R&D for that product? No. That one is in decline. Now, for strategies, for the products we offer a basic product, introduction. In the growth, we offer products, extensions, service warranty, price to penetrate the market. We need to get market share. We're still market share from the market leader. We want to diversify, and then for maturity, we want to diversify brand and models, price to match or beat competitors, build more intensive distribution. Price to match or beat competitors. And then we want to cut the price and decline. Strategies for distribution as it relates to introduction is to build a selective distribution. For growth, we want to consider intensive distribution because we're going to increase what we're doing. For maturity, we want to build more intensive distribution. And then for decline, we want to go selective phase out unprofitable outlets. So whatever's not making money, we phase it out and put stuff that is making money. For advertising and introduction, we need to build product awareness among early adopters and dealers. So the main thing is build product awareness. They need to know of the product and know the value of the product. We need to build awareness and interest in the mass market, which is similar to the earlier stage of the introduction. It's basically more of the introduction. And for maturity, we need to stress brand differences and benefits. And then we need to reduce, and then for decline, that's maturity. For decline, we need to reduce level needed to retain core loyalty. For sales promotion as relates to introduction, we need to use heavy sales promotion to intense trial. Why? We need to get people in trial. And for sales promotion and growth, we need to take advantage of heavy consumer demand. That can entail various things, but anyway, as it relates to sales promotion in the maturity stage, we want to encourage brand switching. So either switching from a more profitable one in your company to a less profitable one to a more profitable one. And sales promotion as it relates to the decline stage is reduced to a minimal level. So this is basically referring to marketing investment and cost. Now, we also need to consider additional parts and service considerations. As we wrap up our discussion of products and services with two additional considerations, social responsibility and product decisions issues, international products and services marketing. So we have two different main types of markets we want to consider as far as geographical markets. We have the domestic market and we have the international market. The reason why you would leverage out into the international market is for more opportunities for sales, okay, and also for market share. As from the perspective of the international market versus the domestic market. Meaning, once you've already saturated the domestic market, what do you do next? You go to the international market. You always want to diversify and increase your options for selling. well, okay, we don't want to just limit ourselves to just the domestic market, where we can offer the product to multiple markets itself. So, in terms of product decisions and social responsibilities, marketers should carefully consider public policy issues and regulations regarding acquiring or dropping products, patent production, product quality and safety, and product warranties. Remember, we need to follow the laws. We need to consider everything as it relates to regulations. Regarding new products, the government may prevent companies from adding products through acquisitions and the effect if the effect threatens to lessen competition. Companies dropping products must be aware that they have legal obligations written or implied to their suppliers, dealers, and customers who have a stake in the dropped products. So these are ethical slash legal issues, depending on things like contracts and regulations. Companies must also obey U.S. patent laws. When developing new products, a company cannot make its product illegally similar to another company's established product. So another even more simple example would be you can't make, let's say somebody wants to make you can't say, well, I'm going to make a Sony Discman, right, for example, or a Sony Blu-ray player and use the name Sony, or use their let's say trademark name or their logo. Say, well, I'm just going to make that and sell it. Can't do it because it's someone else's. Okay, that's their intellectual property. Now, manufacturers must comply with specific laws regarding product quality and safety. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act protects consumers from unsafe and adulterated food, drugs, and cosmetics. Various acts provide for the inspection of sanitary conditions in the meat and poultry processing industries. Safety legislation has been passed to regulate fabrics, chemical substances, automobiles, toys, and drugs and poisons. The Consumer Production Safety Act of 1972 established a Consumer Product Safety Commission in which they have the authority to ban or seize potentially harmful products and severe penalties for the violation of the law. So that's where legal concerns are very important. You need to comply with the laws of the land that you're in. If consumers have been injured by a product or with a defective design, they can sue manufacturers or dealers. A recent survey of manufacturing companies found that product liability was the second largest litigation concern, behind only labor and employment matters. Product liability suits are now occurring in federal courts with a rate of 20,000 per year, although manufacturers are found at fault only 6% of all the product liability cases when they are found guilty. When they're found guilty, the median jury award is $1.5 billion, and this was as of 2012. So who knows what it is who knows what it is now, because it's now 2023, and obviously 11 years has passed. Individual awards can run into tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. Class action suits can run into the billions, which basically is what happened with Facebook and other social media companies. So, for example, after recalling 9 million vehicles due to problems with the sudden acceleration, Toyota faced at least 234 class action lawsuits that could end up costing the company $6 billion or more. The litigation phenomenon has resulted in huge increases in product liability insurance premiums, causing big problems in some industries. So that's another thing. And not only does this have a penalty, but it also increases the cost of insurance that you need to do business. Some companies pass these higher rates along to consumers by raising prices. Others are forced to discriminate high-risk product lines. Some companies are now appointing product stewards, whose job is to protect consumers from harm and the company from liability by proactively ferreting out potential product problems. Many manufacturers often written product warranties that convince customers of their product's quality. To protect, okay, so that's what they do. And to protect consumers, Congress passed the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act of 1975. The act requires that full warranties meet certain minimum standards, including repair, quote, within a reasonable time without charge, unquote, or replacement or full refund if the product does not work, quote, after a reasonable number of attempts, unquote, at repair. Otherwise, the company must make it clear that it is offering only a limited warranty. Law has led several manufacturers to switch from full to limited warranties and other drop warranties altogether. We also need to consider international product and services marketing. That's something for us to be aware of. With international products and services marketing for special challenges, first they must figure out what products and services introduced in which countries. Okay? Then they must decide how much to standardize and to adapt their products and services for world markets. So in that order, not in the opposite order. On one hand, companies would like to standardize their offerings. Standardization helps a company develop a consistent worldwide image, which is very important. Okay? It also lowers the product design, manufacturing, marketing costs of offering a large variety of products, which is another benefit. On the other hand, markets and consumers around the world differ wildly. Companies must usually respond to these differences by adapting product offerings. So, translation, each country you have to offer different products depending on what would be popular. Okay? So, for example, you wouldn't offer something that a country would find offensive based upon religion or culture. So, when a company has a product like Nestle, which has a product called Kit Kat, it has to customize its marketing message to make the interest and reach the people in whatever country they're in. Now, the part of the bar's appeal might be attributed to the coincidental similarity between the name and whatever country's language it is. So that's one thing. Um, just make sure that when you translate into the language, it's translated correctly to convey the message that would be culturally acceptable, but also the message that you intend. Also, the marketing messages can correspond with the holidays in that country, which increases interest and also the demand for the product as it will be used seasonally. Packaging also presents a new challenge for international marketers. Packaging issues can be subtle. For example, names, labels, and colors may translate easily from one country to another. Now, a firm using yellow flowers in its logo might fare well in the United States, but in other places like Mexico, yellow flower symbolizes death or disrespect. Similarly, nature's gift might be appealing for the name environment mushrooms in America, but it could be deadly in Germany, where gift means poison. That's where you have to make sure that your translation, when you translate over from your language to that language, make sure you've conveyed the right message from the point of view of the country that you want to understand your message. Packaging may also need to be tailored to meet the physical characteristics of the consumers in various parts of the world. For instance, drinks are sold in smaller cans in Japan are better to fit in a smaller Japanese hand. Thus, although product and package standardization can produce benefits, companies must usually adopt their offerings in the unique needs of specific international markets. Service marketers also face special challenge when going global as well. Some service industries have a long history of international operations, which helps, of course. For example, commercial banking industry is one of the first to grow internationally. Banks had to provide global services to meet the foreign exchange and credit cards of their home country clients wanting to sell overseas. In recent years, many banks have become truly global. This is where this matters the most. And let me end with this last couple paragraphs by saying that professional and business service industries such as accounting, management, consulting, and advertising have also been globalized. The international growth of these firms followed by the globalization of companies for the companies they serve. For example, more clients employ worldwide marketing and advertising strategies. Advertising agencies have responded by globalizing their own separate operations. McCann World Group, a large U.S. group advertising and marketing services agency, operates in more than 130 countries. It serves international clients such as Coca-Cola, GM, ExxonMobil, Microsoft, MasterCard, Johnson & Johnson, and so on. The rest of them. And it reaches marketing anywhere from the United States to Canada, Korea, Kazakhstan, etc. Moreover, McCann World Group is one of the companies in the Interpublic group of companies, the immense worldwide network of advertising and marketing services companies. So that also helps as well. Now, retailers are among the latest service businesses to go global as their home markets become saturated. Remember I told you about? You need to expand your market. How do you do that? By offering your product or service in another market besides your own. American retailers such as Walmart, Office Depot, Saks Fifth Avenue are expanding into faster growing markets abroad. Notice they said faster growing markets. That's what's appealing about it. For example, since 1991, Walmart has entered 15 countries as international division sales grew more than 9% last year. Skyrocketing to more than $98.6 billion. Foreign retailers are making similar moves. Asian shippers can now buy American products in the French-owned Carrefour stores. Carrefour, the world's second largest retailer behind Walmart, now operates more than 15,000 stores in more than 30 countries. It is also a leading retailer in Europe, Brazil, Argentina, and the largest foreign retailer in China. And I can tell you when I was in Indonesia, they also had this in their malls too. The trend towards growth and global service companies will continue, especially in banking, airlines, telecommunications, and professional services. Today, service firms are no longer following after manufacturing customers. Instead, they're taking the lead in international expansion. Okay, so that's service-based. You can imagine what's the easiest thing to expand your market out? Service firms. So if you're a service-based company, you have a much easier way of expanding out. And if you think about it, it's not hard to understand why. Because number one, if you have very little inventory to bring and to relocate, it's very easy to do it. Number two, there's a lot less regulations and considerations to consider if you're service based, depending on what space you need and also what equipment you need there, and all as well as local town as well. But the point is, there's a lot. It's easier to relocate if it's a service based firm. Now let's finish off the lesson by talking about and reviewing. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but just to bring to your remembrance of the four objectives. Remember from this lesson, we want to remember how and explain how companies find and develop new product ideas. Okay? This is our purpose of this chapter. And then we also need also remember for objective 2, our second objective, that we want to be able to list and define the steps in new product development process and the major considerations in managing this process. Okay? As for objective 3, remember we need to be able to describe the stages of the product life cycle, or PLC, and how marketing strategies change the PLC. Remember we talked about that? Depending on each stage, what our goals are going to be for each stage. And then for objective 4, we need to remember and discuss 2 additional product issues, which is socially responsible decisions and international product and services marketing. Okay. These are product issues I'm referring to. At the end, we just finished talking about service marketing and the growth for both product and services marketing. Now the last thing we're going to talk about is the key terms. For objective 1, we have new product development. Objective 2, we have idea generation, crowdsourcing, idea screening, product concept, and concept testing. As well as marketing strategy, deployment, business analysis, product development, test marketing, commercialization, customer-centered new product development, and then team-based new product development. And for objective 3, we have product lifecycle, style, fashion, fad, introduction stage, growth stage, maturity stage, and decline stage. And it doesn't mention any vocabulary for objective. Remember what we're trying to accomplish from this lesson. We're trying to accomplish increased not only awareness in terms of knowing things, not necessarily memorizing everything, but understand. Our main objective is actually the understanding behind the material, but getting the awareness and the understanding of the material. Now that will pretty much wrap it up for this lesson. This was chapter 9. Remember, this was new product development and product lifecycle strategies. What I recommend you do is review what I have in this chapter, okay? Feel free to rewind, fast forward, get to wherever areas that you don't understand as much. Remember that my focus is on understanding things, like understanding what something is, how it works, and then getting the understanding of it, okay? Yes, we need to know what stuff is in terms of its definition. We need to know what stuff is. Mainly, we need to know the application for the understanding of it, okay? That's what we're really trying to accomplish. Now, with that being said, next week we're going to be talking about, not next week, but on Thursday, we're going to talk about pricing as relates to marketing and the understanding and capturing customer value as relates to pricing. And now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to click like on the video, because I do understand that this definitely added value to your understanding of marketing and application towards business. Please, if you haven't already, please click subscribe you'll be able to access all my videos on this channel. Right, so, as well as, by the way, I do recommend you also look through the previous videos, see the other videos, the other chapters before that, because this is cumulative, and it is, like, for example, foundational, where you need to understand the previous content to understand the latter content. So, yes, please click subscribe so you'll be able to access all my videos. Also, if you haven't already, please click the bell button. That way you'll be notified of all my future videos. I would like to thank you for watching this video. I know it offered you great value. I would like to wish you a great evening, great day, depending on where you are in the world. I'd like to thank you also for taking the time for learning, and wish you a great day. Take care, and I'll talk